It's Monday!
7/17/17, y'all.
This is Room in the Trees, a podcast about working artists and working with artists and related goods and services. The following was recorded on June 27th, 2017. This is episode 46, Life Path. Room in the Trees is hosted by Trent Reynolds and me, Sabrina Harrison. Show notes, including pictures, links, video, and more for every episode can be found at roominthetrees.com. If you like this podcast, please consider showing your support. You can become a subscribing patron at patreon.com/room. And please rate us on iTunes. It really helps us reach a wider audience, and we just love reading them, and it's really supportive. A gentle hug of encouragement.
Love gentle hugs.
We need gentle hugs of encouragement.
Carrie Scott is an extremely knowledgeable curator and art writer living in London. And let me tell you why Carrie is especially remarkable. She sends you a direct message on Instagram one day,
Yes.
and you find out that she is somebody who bought your books and read your books when, at the time you published them, is about the same age, and understands your work on a very intuitive level, and has a very personal connection to your work. And she also is somebody who has this history and has developed skills in this arena of representation. So she's kind of the perfect person to show up at this time of your life. You're ready for it, and then she shows up. And she loves your work and understands your work, and she knows how to get it in front of people who are going to respond to it and appreciate it as much as she does. Think that's amazing.
So great to have Carrie join us today. She added so much to the conversation. It was a lot of fun. So without further ado, here is our convo with Carrie.
What time is it in London?
Wine time.
Bring it on.
My children are asleep, and so yeah, it's that time of day.
Oh, for some reason I had thought that this is your first kid, but this is not your first kid.
Oh no! I've been around this block once before, and this time I'm not letting go of my life. I really am. I'm sort of glad you are recording, because the truth of the matter is, the first time I was like, nope, I'm going to focus on being a mom, and I'm going to stop, and I'm going to just be a mom. And then about 2.3 minutes into it, I was like, I'm miserable. This is the worst thing I've ever done. Who am I? Where did I go? Second time around the rodeo, I was like, okay, ready? I'm going to hold on to my life, and I'm going to keep doing the things. And that's not to say that I haven't made every sacrifice under the sun, because you have to when you have a child. But you just learn how to build in the time for yourself.
That's a whole conversation in and of itself, and I think there's so many people out there that are fighting for that, right? It's a really, really hard balance to find.
Totally. I mean,
Trent has 3 kids himself.
Brave. Yeah. Very brave.
Brave or stupid? I held on to that word for a little bit. I don't mean that. Very, very intelligent decision on my part.
Oh, good one. Yeah. Great. My kind of people.
Mm-hmm.
No, it is. It's a thing. I mean, and that's also, it's a thing of life, right? It's that, like, how to be selfish when you need to be selfish, and how to be selfless when you need to be selfless. And you're a better person if you can figure out how to do that when you need to do it,
Yeah. Well, and if you don't have any strength yourself, you have nothing to give others, right? Whether it be your kids, students, or, whomever you're working with. So it's Correct. Tricky to find the balance between nourishing yourself and maintaining your own sense of purpose and identity, and then also being that for other people.
Amen.
Hard. Amen.
So, and we're done.
And they're not here right now.
Stop. So
Oh.
I think we should just jump into our discussion on the Star Trek: The Next Generation and dig into. I was trying to think, Carrie, of the thing you were most likely to be the least interested in. I
That's
think.
it. That you've just
Star-
got it. You've literally just got it. I hate Star Trek. If you'd done Star Wars, I would have been like, Star Wars, I can hang.
Star Wars. I
But
was gonna do Star Wars, but
No, Star Trek. No, I
Star
never
Trek,
got
I
into
never,
it.
ever watched it.
No.
Ever. Never.
Good.
Don't
that's-
get it.
Maybe it was the
Uh-uh.
outfits that alienated us. I don't know.
That one man was so ugly.
So ugly.
It's just weird.
It
Which
was-
one
it
man
was
are you
down to
talking about?
aesthetic. It was
Weird,
down
yeah,
to aesthetic.
It's totally down to aesthetic. Just weird ears, like kind of a long, weird, just
Are you-
weird
Ears.
face.
Whereas
weird
if you
nose.
compare, like, come on, Indiana Jones, what was his name?
Right.
Harrison Ford. Like, that's an aesthetic you want to look at.
Yeah, but there's some funky looking creatures in Star Wars too, though.
No, but
Yeah,
they're good
we're-
funky.
we're looking at the men.
I
Well,
mean,
but if you think about Chewbacca, I mean, he was good funky. Or Jabba
Right.
the Hutt, those rolls of fat. I mean, Lucian Freud, his entire career is based on that, right?
I would love to see a Lucian Freud version of Jabba the Hutt. That would possibly be
good.
the greatest painting ever.
Listen, it would be. But no, Star Trek, sorry. No can do.
All right, I can't either. I don't know Star Trek either.
What can we start with you two telling me how this goes? What do we do? How are we doing this?
We're doing
Yeah, we
it. Or go ahead.
we're
We're doing
So-
it. We're in it.
yeah. The story's happening. So, do you know any background about the podcast and why we're doing it?
Yes,
Who
of
we are.
course.
Oh, you do? Okay. No, I didn't know. So we're old high school friends from art class, like independent study, sort of fifth period. And so the way we do it is we pretty much, it's like, it's definitely uncut, just talking. We will edit. We'll be like, and that's not for the podcast. Just to feel free to go wherever you want to go with it, and we can cut out stuff.
So
we just
basically,
talk-
in the middle of the night when I'm replaying this in my head, and I'm like, do you know what? Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but feel free to talk about whatever you want. And we just talk for about an hour and then we're done.
Amazing.
And yeah. So it's not so much an interview, but more a conversation. And we're just it's a bit more popcorn style of just, but there are, things we're kind of love to ask you about and talk about.
Great. I got
Mhm.
things I want to ask you two about.
Oh, we want to start with that?
Sure.
Okay.
So if I'm like summing up the pile of books I'm staring at, which you authored, Sabrina Ward Harrison,
Mhm.
there's an element of like wanting to help, right? Like help your readers, help sort of liberate your audience from the noise in their head.
Yeah.
And so my obvious sort of question or concern was, is the podcast trying to do that as well? When you guys thought about it, were you thinking, you know what, we want to give people the sort of freedom that you two seem to embody anyway, to just think and do and make? Is that why you guys sort of set out to do this?
I think for me, my answer would be, I don't think we set out to do, I think again, it's like make what you most want to find, which I feel strongly about. And I think this was the kind of podcast I wanted to find, a really real conversation between friends about not just the directly serious, it's like living as an artist and as a creative person, but also just talking about random stuff about how it's just hard to be human. It's just weird, and being introverted. And so the format of this feels a little bit the way a book is intimate. It's just a one-on-one experience, similar to listening to a podcast. It's just like it's something you're doing on your own.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of degrees, right? I think we knew going into it that it would fill a role or come across in a certain way, but I don't think that was ever really the focus. I think we both listened to quite a few podcasts, and we liked the format. We liked the way the kind, like, who were some of the podcasts that we originally modeled after? It was
Off Camera.
Off Camera, right, right.
Sam Jones, great
And
photographer.
I don't know that one.
Long format conversation, basically.
yeah, and he's a photographer, and he interviews people that he has photographed. And
Oh, nice.
it's just very similar, sitting down with having a conversation. And you hear Sam Jones just has natural curiosity, and he asks questions as they come to his mind or as he's thought about it beforehand. But it's not this regimented or like highly polished program. It's it feels very much like two friends just chatting.
And especially because he's interviewing a lot of very well-known actors, so it's not the feeling like it's secretly just a pitch for some new movie coming out,
Nice.
Yeah.
Nick Knight, one of the artists that I work really closely with, he has a video sort of interview series where he sits down with models who are not in pictures that he's taken, but it's who can I think of a good example? Whatever, whoever sat for Irving Penn, these iconic images. Karen, I can't remember her last name right now, which is really terrible of me, talking about her shot with Tim Walker. And it's
Tim
the model's
Walker.
perspective of what it's like to sit for these huge names in
I
fashion
love
photography.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's just nice when you turn the perspective for a second,
Yes.
and then it's not all
Yes.
about the photographer or
Yes.
the brand, but actually it's about the person sitting and what it's like to sit there and pose.
I love that concept. I love that. What's the name of it?
They're called subjective. Nice. Really nice.
I
but they are
feel like
not
that
podcasts.
gets at. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go. What does it get at?
Well, I think this all ties into I don't know what brings us together in this conversation, and that is like this ability that the internet and other technologies that are coming up give us to turn the camera away from what it's been able to focus on in the past, camera or whatever, our attention, and to get more, I don't know, personal, close. I don't know. I just think it changes the relationship that we're able to create between an audience and content creators, I guess, if you're going to say it that way.
So, but Sabrina
Uh-huh.
and Trent, because Trent, I read you're an artist as well. Is it not just a bizarre medium for you guys? It's not visual.
It's perfect.
It's perfect. It is
It's
perfect.
perfect because it Trent, you could share yours. I feel like it's critical as creative people to have a conversation, continue the conversation. If you're not in the studio working near people, you want to be able to talk about your work. You want to be able to talk about where you're stuck, the kind of monkey mind that can get going.
The what?
Monkey
The
mind.
who?
The monkey mind. The like crazies in your head of like self-doubt and self-critic stuff going on. That I think artists really need to, because you don't have coworkers, you don't have sort of sidekicks that are helping you and are just creating beside you. So, and also being kind of introverted people, and I feel like it's helped me develop my voice a little bit more outside of the books. You wouldn't hear my voice, and so to bring that to something that I'm actively sharing and kind of oversharing a little bit spontaneously, and I like that quality to it, because I think obviously I overshared a little bit in my books, but in a way that I think was helpful. So
I think it's an introvert's medium. Like,
Yeah.
I think if you were like traditional media, like a TV broadcast or making a polished like documentary or a show where the audience that's being performed to is this unknown mass, right? Like you don't really know who that is. Whereas with this, it can be just about a conversation and that's it. And then you can publish that, but it was never what drove the communication or what drove the creation of what we're doing was never anticipating what our what everybody wants, right? Or what a demographic wants, or this unknown quantity. Like, I don't know. I always feel like I feel really overwhelmed by the thought that I would try to engage a huge amount of people in a conversation. But just talking to Sabrina, I get that, and I'm comfortable with that. And I can kind of wrap my mind around what we're doing here. Whereas I think if I had in my mind that we were trying to cater to this mass audience, I don't think we could feel comfortable, or I don't think we could really exist in that place.
See, but that feels so contradictory to me, right? So I look at artists, and I think you guys are you're extroverts in your ability to like just be brave and put your own stuff out there, like your own voice, right? What I do is I sort of hide behind the artist and I champion that artist, and I use, my ability to like sort of wave the flag for you guys and talk about what it is you're doing. But I'm standing behind you. I'm not putting it's not me I'm putting out there. And I recently I just started doing a show, like a TV show, and I'm the presenter and I'm in front of the camera and I don't know the audience. But again, because I'm talking about artwork, it's not scary, because I can I use the crutch, and I use your bravery to do that. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's entirely making sense, but I feel like it would be more frightening to draw something or write something down and put it out in the world than what it is I do. I don't know.
But what you're doing is the same thing, though, to a certain degree. You are presenting an opinion. You're presenting yourself, right? And there's going to be criticism. There's going to be some kind of audience that's going to give you feedback about that. Isn't that just as daunting?
Everyone hates my funny old accent.
Are
you English or American? Come on, girl. Be one or the other.
I was going to ask you that very thing, because in some of the videos, I watched some of the videos on your site, and in some it seemed like, I just couldn't tell where it was coming from.
Listen, I've got different versions of myself, and it depends on the day.
Hey, man, I'm okay. I'm okay with that.
I was, my mother is sitting within earshot, bizarrely, and she doesn't normally live anywhere near me, but she moved me to the States when I was sort of 4-ish, and I lived there for I don't know, until I was 30, however many years that is, 27, and then I came back. But I had these like very British parents, and I spent my life ping-ponging back and forth because my dad stayed here, but I have my stepdad and my mom are thoroughly British, and I've married the most British man on the planet. I mean,
you have?
Oh my Lord. I mean, I have 2 children called Arthur and Monty. How did that happen?
That's excellent. Yeah.
But when I want to be like badass, I'm American. Like there's no, if I need to stand up to someone, I'm American. If I need to be polite, I'm a Brit. So you could probably go back through all of my interviews and be like, oof, she was all guns blazing in that one.
That is awesome. I'd never really thought it.
Yeah.
I just, I can just put on the different outfit if I need to.
That's really cool.
Well, it is cool until my son has started to say things like water. He sounds like he's from New Jersey. And we're going to a wedding this coming weekend, and he keeps on saying, we're going to a hotel, Mom. I'm like, what? It's amazing. And otherwise, he's so posh. It's like, tractor, mummy. Yeah, so anyway, poor kid. He's going to be all sorts of screwed up.
And doesn't what your second son, Monty, have dark hair? Yeah,
I've got my salt and pepper boys. I'm so thrilled about it. My little feminist men that I'm raising. One looks like an Aryan prince, and the other one is like the deepest, darkest Jew. Great.
I really like, this is really fun we're at the beginning of our friendship and our relationship. I appreciate your humor a lot. It's good. It's very funny.
Well, and that's the weird thing, right? Is that you haven't known me for years. I've known you since my 20s. right? I mean,
so weird.
you've been with me since my 20s. You helped, I mean, you literally helped my sister through her teens. And you certainly helped me through some stuff. So that's even more bizarre, right? That like before, I mean, we're talking before Instagram, before Facebook, before MySpace even, you were this entity in my life. And I always appreciated your like sense of humor and your voice and your, I don't know. So it's slightly surreal for me now. And life is surreal anyway, because I haven't slept in 4 months, but that, you know, that we're having a chat and I'm helping you do stuff and that you think I'm funny. I mean, it's amazing. Trent, what do you do?
Besides being a dad.
Besides the 3 children, the 3 children, not 1, not 2, but 3.
2.
How old are they? What are they? Who are they?
They are 3 girls, and I come from a family of 6 boys. I'm the 4th of 6 boys, so the raising girls has continued just to be constantly over my head.
I'm really glad you know Sabrina. I think she's going to help you with that.
Yeah. No, it's I love being a father, but I make art. I've just moved into a new art studio with 4 other artists in Santa Monica and teach art at Santa Monica College. And then in August, I'm going to be starting a new teaching job at a private high school up by the Getty in LA.
Like up in the hills.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a beautiful campus. And that's pretty much it. That's what I do. I'm going to make a podcast with Sabrina.
Nice. Have you sort of shied away from the gallery world in the same way that Sabrina has?
You know what? We've talked about this, Sabrina. I've talked about this before. I went to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago and had a fantastic experience there. And there's this pipeline that I'm sure you're well aware of like at your final, thesis exhibition. They usually have an early viewing day for galleries to come in and go around and look at the work, and that's where a lot of artists coming out of grad school will find or start relationships with galleries in the area or elsewhere. And I had a gallery approach me that they were interested in my work, and it was a series of paintings that it served a purpose, but they weren't meant to go beyond that. And I just felt like I dropped the ball a bit and kind of missed that opportunity. And I guess I don't know. I've felt like my work hasn't been in a place, or I haven't been in a place, or I started having kids, and that prevented me from really pursuing that in any real way. So I haven't avoided it as much as I've just life has happened, and it just hasn't been part of the path that I've been on.
Which is, I forever wonder what the role of the gallery is, and what it is now. When I was silly and naive and it was 2008 and the world was falling apart, I was like, the gallery system's over. The white cube, it's boring. It's not for us. It's not our generation's way of receiving or transmitting art.
Right.
And I really had felt like a used car salesman. I can't remember if I said this to you, Sabrina, but that you were representing the same sort of 8 to 12 artists, and every 18 months you had their work up again, because that's the rotor of the gallery. And you're like, okay, go again, sell this work again, whether you believe in it or not, do it again. And I was like, this is not why I got into art. This isn't how it was supposed to be. And so I did sort of say, well, hang on, I can just help artists do special projects and this can be okay. and none of it was actually as deliberate as all that. It sort of happened to me, and I just went with it. But I still wonder what the role of the gallery is. And if you look at the really sort of successful galleries right now, they're changing it up. They have the white cube. You know, if you look at someone like a Hauser and Wirth, they have their white cubes, and they have them in Zurich and in London, and LA and New York now. But then they also have this farm in the middle of Somerset where they're doing these amazing, yeah. And then they're opening a hotel in nowhere, Scotland, where I think artists will start doing residencies, and the artists are also doing residencies in Somerset. And all of a sudden, there's this like space. There's this need for getting away and seeing art outside of seeing it living.
Yes.
Right.
And I'm excited about that. And if they're doing it, everyone will follow.
Yep.
You know. But I think
I'm
maybe
curious.
a bunch of us were following anyway, or starting anyway.
Right.
You're curious about what? Sorry.
I'm curious to hear. You've talked about the white cube and how there's this kind of sense that we were going away from that, and I'm wondering how you would describe, or the story that you would tell to summarize the trajectory of the gallery and what it has, where it came from, and where it's going. Like,
oh God, that's like
do you
real
have?
proper.
Yeah, I know it's huge. It's a huge thing to cover. But you have like an overview, or the high up view of what that looks like.
The potted history. I mean, I'm thinking like, I can't remember his name. Edward something wrote an essay on Orientalism, which was all about the beginning of the gallery. And somewhere in my brain, I'm sure I could access this information.
Not the official history, just the history according to Carrie.
There we go. Let's do that. I mean, in my head, it's Paris and salon style hanging, of tons and tons of paintings, and it's where sort of Manet, Monet get thrown out because their stuff looks like trash, and is, it's not the beautiful figurative, perfect work. And if you think about someone like Picasso, right, he cut his teeth on doing almost like medically precise paintings. They're so hyper realist. They're Velasquez. They are perfection, and then he rips it apart and lets himself go. But the gallery itself, I can't remember where it goes from that salon style ornate, because at the turn of the last century, that's what it was. It was all, brocade and wooden walls, and the frames were more important than the work almost, right? And then all of a sudden it gets pared back, but where that happens, I don't know. And that would be, I mean, I'm gonna hang up the phone and say that's a show in and of itself, whether it's a podcast or a TV show. It should be a thing.
Right.
When does it become about this big stark cube? And in fact, if you look at someone like White Cube, the gallery,
right,
when Jay Joplin set that up, his whole intent was just to have a white box, one artist, one show, and he was doing however many shows a year that he represented, and that was it. So it was one work, one artist, one cube. So it's pretty young, this idea of like a big white box where you just show the work. And where it go, I mean, I just think we're over it. I think we're over, I mean, this will really get me into trouble, but I'm certainly over walking into a gallery and being dismissed. I think everyone is. I mean, it's almost a sort of a cliche to talk about that aspect of the gallery world, that it's this closed down system.
And it establishes a relationship of power, right? Like that you're going into their space. They have chosen what's important to show you, right? And that's what creates the monetary value of what it is, the product that they're offering, and that's tied into a larger conversation that involves publications and schools and all this other stuff. And the word that you used in one of your videos that kind of jumped out at me was that things are slippery. It's more slippery. More slippery. And that that you actually do have a physical location that people can go to, and they can walk in the door and be presented with objects and this experience, but it's not as clear what that experience is meant to be.
No.
And I think therefore is not as clear what the power dynamic is there, like who is meant to be the one that is the decision
how
maker.
awesome is that, though? And that's happening across the board.
Right.
If you think about magazines, it used to be once a month you would get Vogue. And it would come in, and you would look at your pictures that had come out and the clothes that had come out, and that was it, right? And if you're a model in Vogue, your voice is nothing. If you're a photographer in Vogue, your voice is delayed by however many months past the shoot, sort of 3 months. Whereas now, the model's more important than the magazine. The model has more followers on Instagram than all of the circulation of the magazine.
Right.
The photographer, same deal, has more currency online than the magazine. So all of a sudden, the whole power dynamic has shifted, and that's true of the art world. If you look at a Hauser and Wirth's Instagram versus their artists, whose voice is louder? It's the artists. So you're transmitting, you're like skipping that middle person. And so the gallery has to be smarter. And that was the thing that in 2008, I did this project as part of Nicole Klagsburn Gallery, where we went to W Magazine, and Mika Rottenberg wanted to do a really expensive but beautiful video installation, and we needed to raise capital to do it. So W backed it. Then we sold work off the back of that, and then she did this whole big project. And I suddenly thought, well, hang on, that has to be a more interesting, there's like a triangle there, right? So there's the magazine, so tons of people will see it. There's the gallery where a minority, sadly, will see it. And then it'll have an online presence where more people than the magazine would see it. And I just think you have to, and actually, Sabrina, that brings me back to you, because I always felt like, or I always wondered, why choose the books? Were you so smart that you thought, you know what, I got to get this out there, and the easiest way to do that, or the fastest way to do it, is in book format? Because if you had done it in galleries, it would have been like, a slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah. Well, I think I felt kind of called. Once I made Spilling Open, it was like, this is what I do. This is what I do. There's a lot of things I can't do. A lot of things I can't do. Clearly cannot do. And don't even want to try to do. But that felt like it kind of came out of left field to some extent. It happened very quickly. And that's just what the shape, and the designer part of me, I just absolutely love composition and design, and initially went to school to be a graphic designer and photographer. So that would have been my path I actually would have chosen, and I think I would have been, that's where I felt, that's what I do. Like, once I started doing graphic design and working within, kind of given a problem to solve graphically with images and text to be emotionally evocative, that's what I knew how to do. And so I knew how to take that and create visual, that I could create that visually for people.
I think the problem with some of this is that, we're coming at it from two different angles. One is, the young Sabrina that is going to school for the first time and trying to figure that out, and life is, hasn't happened yet, right? It's still in front. Mm-hmm. And then now we're talking about this as if there was, a certain amount of intention to how things happened. But I'm sure at the moment, she wasn't, there was no internet, right? There was no other, there was no other option in front of her to really be too deliberate about, like she knew of a publisher. She dropped off the pages on the publisher's doorstep. You know, like that's kind of what was there to do. You know, and I think the same with this podcast. Like, it's not that we're thinking, you know, maybe just because there's more awareness now of what podcasts are and how it might assist in reaching larger audience. It didn't really cross our minds as we were talking about it, like, oh, this is going to, you know, reach a larger audience, and then we can build into this, and you know, and like this great plan. It really never wasn't like that. Like, we were just having conversations, and then we heard, you know, we were listening to other podcasts, and we realized, hey, we should record our conversations. Maybe other people would like to hear us, you know, what we have to say. And then it, you know, it's just kind of that the circumstances combine to create this thing. And it's the same with art making, right? Like, you make a painting, and then after the fact, 20 years later, people look back and say, oh, look, he was very intelligent in doing this. You know, he put these two colors together, and that was exactly the right thing to do, because, you know, he anticipated the war of, you know, such and such. And really, you know, and I've heard this over and over again. I've watched so many documentaries. I love them, and I love just going to artist studios, and I spend a lot of time talking with artists. And rarely is it ever that calculated or, you know, conscious. I really do think that there's something to this idea that artists are the mirror of society, that, you know, artists are just reflecting the unique set of circumstances that surround us.
Then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So true. So true. But I think people like to pretend there's a plan and an answer. And I'm forever saying to people, well, I don't know. You just get there. That's how you end up. There's this amazing, oh God, who is the quote? It's not Walt Whitman. It's all about what is, that you can't get back. No matter how much you backtrack and delve into the past, you can't actually figure out how you got to where you are. It's just what is. And it's true. We're here.
But that's the difficulty of your job, though, and I think that's what I would like to hear you talk about, is that it is your job to put this, you know, this messiness that, you know, that is art and artists into some kind of context and present it in a way that's comprehensible and accessible. So it's interesting to me that you are playing with this tension between the inherent messiness of art making and, you know, the messiness of our time, where power structures are being questioned and toppled and all this stuff. And you have to figure out a way to create a TV show, to create a space, to create an online, you know, a website, and present all this in some kind of comprehensible, meaningful way. You know, and that is part of the dynamic between the art and society, is, you know, the people who are able to somehow crystallize meaning from, you know, from the stuff that's just kind of happening.
Yeah,
do you see that as your role?
I do. I absolutely do. But I think there's I don't know. I think if you're open to sort of listening and looking, that you can then pull people along with you to listen and look. And that's really my only job. You know, I can put together a sort of 5-year plan and say to an artist, where do you want to get to? And we can together say, okay, this is where we want to get to. And you can get there. You know, you can white knuckle through anything, and you can try and you can try and you can try. And I believe that, you know, if you work hard, you get to where you want to get to. But that on the way, if you can just help people to stop and look, you've done it. Because actually that's all it is. It's like, just stand in front of this thing and think about it. And if I can pose 4 questions that make you stop and look, then I'm done. That's it. And so it's more that I'm like that you're just helping people stop and look. It's like slowing down almost.
So I understand that intellectually, and I think it's a beautiful, wonderful idea. I really do. That really strikes a chord with me. As somebody coming from, the side that I am. I'm on the artist side. What does that actually look like? Like, I don't know, maybe this is overstepping, and Sabrina or Carrie, let me know. I don't know, I don't want to, whatever, over ask. I always over ask. I'm an over asker. But Carrie, what does that mean for you and Sabrina? Like, how do you take Sabrina and get people to stop and look? I mean, are you calling people? Are you like,
Yeah.
I just don't understand. Does that make sense? Like the
Yeah.
actual
No, it
mechanics
does.
of
It's
that, how it
about
works.
hustling. I mean, when people ask me what I do, if I've had a glass of wine, I'm like, I'm a hustler. I'm an art hustler. It's calling people. It's sending emails. It's saying, I can't tell you how many times I have written to a curator at a top museum who has ignored me. I mean, just verbatim ignored me. And now he's like, oh, okay. That girl actually, I mean, he pretends like I've never written to him before and that this is the first time I've met him, but he's now paying attention. So it's it's cold calling. I'm a salesperson ultimately, and I just choose to do it in a slightly different way. So I've chosen to do it by helping artists outside of the traditional gallery model, whether that be the TV show, whether that be participating in a podcast, whether it be helping them build a website, whether it be doing like non-traditional exhibitions or traditional exhibitions. Like it's figuring out the best way to help their work be seen. And it's totally calling people. It's calling interior designers because you think, do you know what? This work is beautiful, and if people want it to be easy, they can think it's easy, and those interior designers will put it up on the wall for a couple shoots, and it'll appear in House and Garden, and then all of a sudden someone will buy it. It's like, I keep saying hustling, but it's hustling.
But so it's not entirely, there's this business side of it, right? Whereas there's just the, wanting to make money for both yourself and the artist. It's a living, but then there's also this aspect of it where it's just, like you said, you want to get people to stop and look and, just have this, there's experiential side. How do you see that, or how does that dynamic work?
Well, I've never, there is, art for me isn't art for art's sake. It isn't. And for as long as art's been made, there's been a commissioning person. Think about the Medicis. You can go back further than that when there were cave drawings, right? Those were a way to communicate. And that's what it's always been about. So the business of art is the business of making it and the business of selling it. They are so intertwined that they can't exist without the other. So I have no problem with it being a business. I just think that there's a way to do it with a bucket load of integrity. And there's a way to do it without. And the used car salesman version is how to do it without. I think. And that's pretty, I'm being quite damning of the gallery world, which is scary. And I may call you tomorrow and say, do not put that out there. But equally, But equally, if you look at the path I've taken, that's what I've done.
Can you tell us a little bit about your path that you've taken?
Oh God, no. It's boring. It's dull. I worked for the best gallery in the whole world.
Wait, back up though. But you studied at school.
I studied English and art history. I mean, in high school, I wanted to be an artist. And then I went to this amazing little liberal arts school called Dickinson, where if you wanted to be an artist, you had to take art history classes. And my mother was pretty good at saying, just also do something practical, have your feet in something that's more grounded maybe than just art. But Dickinson did that too. And in making work, I realized I loved talking about it. And then actually I fell in love with literature. Anyway, I did enough credits so that I could have had a double major, but I focused on my English degree in the end. Then I went to work for Condé Nast Travelers online site straight out of college. I thought it was like my dream job. I was so happy I was at Condé Nast, and that was it. I was part of the magazine world, and I never had to leave. And then I quickly realized that wasn't the right formula for me because it was too formulaic, like what I did there. And then and then September 11th happened, and that was big and scary, and I just had to do something. I had to like shake my version of reality up. So I decided I was going to go to grad school at the same time that Gerhard Richter had a show at MoMA, his first retrospective, and I realized that I was spending more time staring at his paintings than I was doing anything else, and that was the only thing that was making me feel better. So I was like, I know, I'm going to go to grad school. I'm going to write about travel from an art perspective. I've got this all nailed out, and everything's going to be fine. I have no idea how I'm going to pay for it, but everything's going to be fine. And I wanted to get as far away from both New York and London as I could, so the West Coast was the answer. And then I ended up in Seattle knowing absolutely no one, and was like, what have I just done? This is crazy. Like, this place is backwater. This is not a city. Like, I've ping-ponged between London and New York my whole life. Where am I?
Yeah.
But it was the best thing. I mean, it was amazing. And the program was good, but the best thing was that I met some people that were like living and breathing art, and I worked for James Harris, who I still maintain has one of the best eyes in the business. And his program is beautiful. The way he looks at art is beautiful. The way he approaches his business is beautiful. I think he goes bankrupt every other month, but he's amazing. And it was incredible working for him. It was him and I, and it was sort of him and I against the world. And we did some amazing things together. And when I left him, I was heartbroken. But I felt like, I had been recruited to go back to New York, and if I was going to make a success of this, I had to be in New York. And again, I did 2 years in New York and was like, no, get me out of here. This is awful. It was like Condé all over again. I was like, I was back in a big machine, and it was formulaic, and it just didn't work. And you didn't have any freedom. So in Seattle, I could, I ran a nonprofit at the same time as working for Jim. I was writing. And in New York, everyone was like, no, you can't do all those things. You have to you're sales. You're a director of a gallery. You're just sales. Sell. And so thank God for 2008. Like, I was there at another shaky moment, and I just thought, when Nicole fired me, that was a good start. She didn't fire me. What did she do? She let me go because of financial stuff. And I was like, okay, I'll just try this. And again, to give my parents their due, my mom was like, okay. And away I went. So that's my sort of potted history.
Came to London.
Well, I also came to London because I was head over heels in love with this 4-year-old man. He's 4 years younger than me. So that's why I call him a 4-year-old. But he, I was sort of like, okay, I have my own business, which I really didn't. I mean, I think I was making like $200 a month. But I was pretending I had my own business and that everything was going to be fine. And I was like eating into the tiny amount of savings that I had.
Yeah.
And yeah, my now husband kept saying, well, you can move. You've got both passports and you have your own business. So why don't you just come? And at the same time, Jimmy Moffat, who's the head of Art and Commerce, which is a company that represents some of the biggest fashion photographers in the world, he said to me, oh, I've got this photographer in London who needs some help. Would you ever consider going? And I was like, yes, because I can figure out the boy and maybe this will be good for business.
Yeah.
But, and that's where I come back to the, like, there is no linear what is. It was all a big, messy
Yeah.
thing, and you just go with it, right?
I think that's what feels to me like why you and Sabrina make such a good fit. I mean, you've approached your
Mm.
career or your life very, very much the way I feel like Sabrina talks about
Mm-hmm.
approaching her artwork. There's
And my
this,
life too. Just
and your life, yeah.
yeah.
And I think it takes a very specific kind of person, a personality, to be able to deal with living in the question, and
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
not forcing an answer, not forcing a narrative, or relying on somebody else's narrative. The willingness to kind of exist in a slippery space. Like
Mm-hmm.
just to
Absolutely.
kind of be suspended for a while and allow things to happen, and not as they need to happen, and not as you would want them to happen.
Mm.
Absolutely. Yeah. And either people get that or they totally don't get that. And you can't spend your
Mm-hmm.
life trying to tell people, yeah.
But Carrie, as like Sabrina's representative, what do you want, or like as an artist, let's just say an artist generally, a representative, what is it? What is it that you want the artist to provide you, or um, what's the relationship there? Like, are you just kind of checking in every once in a while to see if she's produced something new, or I mean, or is this Clem Greenberg going into the studio and trying to
No.
force the artist to create the work that supports his theories? Or like what do you want that dynamic or relationship to be?
I mean, I think ultimately it's custodial.
Mm,
Um, that I'm helping it get out there because you guys should be too busy making, um,
mm,
Mm-hmm.
and I should just be taking it and figuring out how to put it in front of as many people as possible.
mm,
Um, and I could expand on that, but I think that's probably the sweet spot. Really, it's
right.
just how do you get important work seen? Um,
I have a question, just tying into the last bit about how you then started working with Nick Knight and the idea of working with someone's archive. Isn't that kind of what a bit of your is that? Can you explain? And also when you and I start talking about working together, there is an element of like there is an archive of all this work from all these books.
Yeah. And I love that part. So I love the
Mm-hmm.
puzzle. I
Yeah.
love the like digging through and trying to piece together the puzzle, um, and make it in a way that isn't quite as messy as maybe it is in your heads. I think also artists hate looking back.
Mm,
I don't know if you two
Yeah.
feel that way, but so I'm sort of the person that should look back, and artists are too busy making to do it. So I think that's another big part of my role, and it's something I truly enjoy. Um, so, and again, I enjoy it not just from being able to look at a whole bunch of beautiful stuff, but that puzzle of
Mm-hmm.
of, and actually maybe because we keep talking about it, but maybe looking back and trying to say, oh, how did we get here? How did we get here? What were the steps?
mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think as an artist, I know like I've had this devil narrative talk in my head that I lost my chance when I didn't jump on the train that was provided me at my last my MFA thesis show. There's this. I think artists have a natural kind of sense of vulnerability in when they think of a relationship with somebody who's going to become their representative, and I don't know. It's feels like you're putting your precious things in somebody else's care. And do you have a sense for that? Do you have a sense
Well,
that
even more so, this not only are they putting like your voice, their voices in my hands, but there's also the financial side of it. It's like
right?
if I don't perform, they can't keep doing what they want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and it's that basic, and it's that scary.
Yeah.
So, so actually, yeah, I mean, it's petrifying for me in so
And
many ways.
I'm sure you've seen gallerists who have not, had integrity and not cared for that relationship as they should have, or respected their role in that relationship. Do you feel like that is something that I don't even know what the question. I don't know. I don't even know what the question I'm trying to ask.
But it is no. But I think I do. I mean, it just comes back to this idea that you can't separate art making from commerce, because one can't exist without the other.
Yeah.
Right.
And we all have to accept that, and we need to figure out the best way to make it happen with integrity and with the hustle. So it's both sides, right?
Right.
It is, and I haven't allowed both sides. I've been so like, I just don't. I'm like, Sabrina, make some money.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. See, now I feel shy putting that in the podcast, but it's like, I deserve to be. Made so much work for people, and it's like still that vulnerable of like, and it's just like, it is tied to it, and I have to embrace that. And that's what's inspiring, is working with somebody that knows and understands why I made the work I made. And
right.
That's, well, and listen, we're products.
Deeply, yeah.
We're products of the breaking of the canvas was not very long ago, right? So this is all new, or the idea that like art can exist without commerce was this thing that artists fought for, or that the narrative was spun that they fought for it. But Jackson Pollock was still selling paintings for huge amounts of money, right? Warhol was selling paintings for huge amounts of money, but they were like, no, we don't have to. So it's this funny, I don't know, it's all new. It's a really new thing that I don't think any of us have worked out. I don't know where I'm going with that thought, but it's somewhere in there.
But I think something that you've brought up several times now is this idea of integrity, and I think that needs to exist on both sides of that relationship, both on your side, where you are taking on this stewardship over these artists' work and how they are presented to the world and where they're presented. But there's also got to be integrity on the artist side, that they don't kind of start to make decisions based on things that aren't authentic or that aren't true to themselves. And like, even if you give them the opportunity to do something that would be lucrative but not necessarily in line with where their heart's at, right? They need to be able to have the integrity to say no.
Absolutely.
Right.
And annoyingly, I work with the most stubborn artists in the world, I think, who all of them, I'll try and bully them into something. And they're like, nope. Right. Sabrina, you're one of them.
I'm excited. I want to be.
Which frustrates me in the moment. And then I have to be like, okay, just go with it for a second.
Well, like, what's an example for you and I?
That's a tough question.
That is a tough question. We haven't had a big one yet.
On the spot.
We haven't.
What would be an example or something?
I think there is an opportunity. This is a real one that we could exploit what's in your storage unit, because it's all gold, and we could throw it out there now. I don't think we should. But there's a part of me that thinks we should. So, but I don't think we should.
Yeah.
So it's not the best example. I'm trying to think of a really good one.
How do you that's one question about that, because my reasoning for that is like, I do think the storage unit, like the archive of the work from the books that I've protected and kept as wholes, that has value. But then when I think about all the work I photographed, I'm like, that's just some shitty screen print. It's like, which I should.
Yeah, but it's not. Like, think about, Louise Bourgeois. You look at her stuff now, and every sketch is important. And yes, I did just compare you to Louise Bourgeois, so that's huge. We'll just do that. We'll just own that.
Just, yeah, putting it out there.
Oh, I want to be mindful of your time, so
Yeah, we just hit an hour.
yeah.
That was
Really-
fun, though. Can we do this
Yeah.
again? Can we have another one?
Yeah.
Can we do one just about parenting?
Yes.
Yes, yes, for sure.
That was really cool. I look forward to the next episode with you talking parenting.
Yeah, episode on parenting coming soon. And thank you all for joining us for another week. So happy that you're there listening, and thank you for all your feedback. If you're interested in one of the True Living experiences coming up, please go to the website. Rate us on iTunes, please. If you want to support the podcast, we would love it if you would contribute at patreon.com/room. And now, get out and tell your story.
Yes. Yes.
Bye.
Bye.